Hello. So, you've been learning Croatian for a while now. You understand more than you did 6 months ago. You can follow a conversation if it moves slowly enough. You recognize words you didn't recognize before, but something still feels tangled. The endings change and you're not sure why. The word order moves around. The verbs come in pairs and nobody explained what that actually means. You sit down to practice, and instead of following progress, you feel kind of a low level confusion that does not seem to be going away. You're not confused because you're doing it wrong. You're confused because nobody showed you the system. Let me show you the system. Croatian has 7 cases. That means nouns, adjective, pronouns, that they will all change their endings depending on their role in the sentence. And when you first encounter that, it looks like chaos. 7 sets of endings to memorize, patterns that almost hold, but not quite. And then there are exceptions and subrules and more exceptions. And most learners at this point either push through with brute memorization, which does work for a while, but then stops, or they give up and they decide that Croatian grammar is simply beyond them. Well, neither response is necessary because the 7 cases are not a list of arbitrary rules. There is a system, a logical, coherent, internally consistent system. And once you see it as a system, everything changes. So here's what those endings are. They are information, precise, efficient, built-in information about how things relate to each other in the world. Who is doing what to who? Where something is, where something is going, what something is made of, who something belongs to. In Croatian, that information lives in the ending of the word itself. In English, word order does that work. The dog bit the man means something completely different from the man bit the dog. And the only thing telling you which is position. Move the words and you change the meaning entirely. In Croatian, the endings do that work. Pas je ugrizao čovjeka. Čovjeka je ugrizao pas. They both mean the same thing. The dog bit the man. Because the ending on čovjeka, that I at the end, it tells you he's the one being bitten, regardless of where the word appears in a sentence. The ending carries the meaning. The word order is free precisely because the endings are doing their job. And this is not a complication added on top of Croatian. This is Croatian's fundamental logic. The ending is not your enemy. The ending is the language doing the work for you, so that you don't have to rely on position to know what's happening. Let's take another case. The genitive. You use it for possession, right? Kuća moje majke, my mother's house. Majke tells you the house belongs to her. You use it after certain prepositions. You use it when talking about quantities. For example, čaša vode, a glass of water. You use it after negation and after numbers. This sounds like a list of completely unrelated uses, but they're not unrelated. Each one expresses a relationship of partial belonging, origin, boundary, or separation. The genitive is the case of connection that isn't complete, of something being of something, from something, out of something, or without something. And once you feel that underlying logic, you stop asking which rule applies here, and you start feeling which case fits. That is the difference between memorizing Croatian and understanding Croatian. And then, of course, there's the aspect. Every Croatian verb, well, almost every, exists in 2 forms. One for actions that are ongoing, repeated, or habitual, and one for actions that are completed, finished, and singular. For example, pisati and napisati. Čitati and pročitati. Jesti and pojesti. So in English, you express this distinction with auxiliary verbs, tense combinations, such as I was writing, I have written, I kept writing, I used to write, I would write. Well, English spreads this information across multiple words, across tenses, and auxiliary constructions. Croatian compresses it into the verb itself. One word. The choice of which verb you reach for, tells you whether the action was completed or not. So this is not redundancy, it's precision. When a Croatian speaker says napisao sam pismo, perfective napisao tells you the letter is finished. It's done, it's complete. When they say pisao sam pismo, the imperfective pisao tells you that they were in the process of writing and perhaps the letter is still not done, or perhaps it's one of the many letters that they regularly write. So those are two entirely different situations expressed through a single verb choice. That's not a complication. That's a language that thinks carefully about whether things are finished or ongoing and builds that thinking directly into its grammar. The reason Croatian feels hard is not that the language is chaotic. It's that you've been looking at it through the lens of English, a language that solves its problems differently. English fixes meaning through position, Croatian fixes meaning through form. English spreads grammatical information across multiple words, Croatian concentrates it. English has simplified its case system almost entirely, while Croatian has kept it full. Neither is better, they're just different. Different architectures built on different logic, solving the same fundamental problems, meaning how do humans communicate precisely with each other? So solving it through different means. And the problem with learning Croatian from English is that every time you hit a case ending, your brain tries to find the equivalent in English structure. And there isn't one. So it feels like something is missing, like there's a gap that you can't fill. There is no gap. The gap is actually the English structure that Croatian doesn't need. So what do you do with this? You stop fighting the language and start moving with it. You stop looking for the English equivalent and start looking for the Croatian logic, the Croatian mind. Start building the Croatian mind, which is what I do with my students. I show them how. So when you encounter a case ending that you don't recognize, instead of asking what rule is, ask what relationship it is expressing. When you encounter an unfamiliar verb pair, instead of asking, which one do I memorize? Ask, is this action finished or ongoing? These are different questions and they point in different directions. They build understanding instead of accumulating rules. And understanding, once it begins, it compounds. Each case you genuinely grasp makes the next one easier to approach. Each verb pair you understand in context makes the next one more transparent. And the system reveals itself gradually through exposure, through use, through hearing the same construction in enough different situations that your brain stops translating and starts recognizing. And this takes time. And it takes patience. And it takes being willing to sit with uncertainty for longer than feels comfortable. But it doesn't take perfection. It does not require that everything clicks into place before you open your mouth. It does not require that you understand the system fully before you start using it. You learn the system by using it. You use it imperfectly, you hear it corrected, or you hear a native speaker use it naturally, and something adjusts. This is how language acquisition works. This is how it has always worked. Yes, Croatian is hard, and it was always going to be hard. And the architecture is genuinely different from English. So the investment is real. But the difficulty is not chaos. It is complexity with logic inside it. And complexity with logic inside it can be learned. Sure, not all at once and not perfectly, but gradually, cumulatively, with every conversation and every listening session and every moment when a sentence lands and you understand not just the words, but why it was built that way. And that moment comes. It comes for everyone who stays. So you're not tangled. You are in the middle of learning a new system of thought. And that's exactly where you should be. Vidimo se sljedeći tjedan.